Hello, this is Bob Butler with the Missional Movement. Movements begin and end with an idea and a commitment, no doubt about it. Today I want to further our conversation about discipleship. Talked a little bit about that in a previous video podcast. Today I want to go a little bit further. I've called this one Discipleship by Design. I thought that was a great name because I wanted to tell you a little story to begin with. It's a story of 6 seminarians who were working in a larger church. In fact, I was one of them. And we were working in this larger church, and I think the senior pastor was feeling a little intimidated by all of our suggestions that were coming really out of our seminary education. We were all on fire for Jesus. And we had talked to him a lot about what it meant to be discipling the congregation, and what the problem was within the congregation was literally that they didn't know enough, that they needed to know more about God, and if they did, well, that would solve all of our problems. So he agreed. He said, well, why don't you write me a discipleship program that we can implement, and why don't the 6 of you get together and I'll kind of check in with you, but you give me a full program and then we'll discuss it as a group. So, of course, as seminarians, we dove into everything that was out there at that time. We took it all, we surmised it, we found these great programs and these ways in which we can integrate everything and this whole pathway to truly being a disciple. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, it was 65 pages when it was completed. That's right, 65 pages. And I can still remember sitting around the kitchen table with all the seminarians there and all of us like high-fiving one another. This project was done, the spell check was over, the paragraphs were right, the diagrams, the charts, the graphs. It was heavy, it was an A, as Rodney Dangerfield would say in Back to School. It was nice. So then we all were around when one of the seminarians pressed the button for send. And as we were still celebrating, probably 40 minutes later, maybe an hour later, about what we had achieved and how great it was going to be in the future, we received a 1-paragraph answer from the senior pastor. And it was basically this: this is really amazing if I was asking you for a program and if I believed that we made disciples, but we don't. It is the Holy Spirit who makes disciples. We do not make disciples. We only provide resources and plans and helpful ideas for those who are willing to traverse this long path to truly being a disciple for Christ. Oh, wow. What a moment in my formation. Disciples are equipped and called by the power of the Holy Spirit. We are but agents of His to assist in the transformation. Just like little kids in a lab, we can't create anything before us. We're just there taking the information, putting it in test tubes, helping people along, and moving them forward, right? It's really, that's what we're doing. And the Holy Spirit encourages this learning, which takes on 3 different forms. Our formation takes on 3 different forms: meta-learning, reflective learning, experiential learning. Meta-learning is this effort to expose another to a new reality through information that awakens our minds to new ways of seeing life. It exposes our assumptions, our misconceptions, and even our false narratives, while confirming the small, still voice that has invaded our soul. It is prodding us. It is information that prods us to see the world differently. You ever read something and it just blew you away? Blew your mind, if you will? Yeah. So much of Christendom and some of the writings have done that for me. That's meta-learning. Then there is a second form of learning which kind of comes along with this, and it's reflective learning. This is the learning that encourages us to dig deeper into our soul. It happens when people give us good questions and there's conversation and people challenge us and we challenge them. And through that, we get below the surface of our well-fortified facades. We've all got them. But in the reflective of those moments, it's not that we're right or they're right or we're wrong. It's more of a culmination of question and answer and discussion that creates this new understanding, a new learning happens. So first we learn through information, then we learn through this reflective questioning, and then we end up with experiential learning, which is the idea that we try to apply the knowledge to everyday experiences. This happens all the time, doesn't it? It's been asserted that true learning cannot take place until we learn experientially. Great example of all of this kind of working together is a story from Scott McKnight, seminary professor, book writer, author, amazing guy. He tells a story where he used to test his students when they came into class and have them take a personality test for God. Can you imagine just taking a personality test? You know, the test you see all over the place. And taking a test like that for God. And then 4 to 6 weeks later, you still haven't gotten your results back for your test you took for God. And he had a whole lesson around that, so they didn't really think it was much. But 4 to 6 weeks later, they take a test on themselves, a personality test for their own formation. And very near the end of the class, he gives them back both, after they've analyzed how close the two are together. And in Scott's words, more than 90% of the people, what their understanding of what God would say and do is actually aligned with what they say and do. How amazing is that, right? Now, there's learning in that, but the real learning is the experiential moment where he had them sit it and write it down, and then they couldn't deny it. So then there's the question and answer of why this takes place. And then the formative learning that comes from this thought. That if God is a lot like you in personality and temperament, is that really God or is that you? And really, shouldn't we be looking for the God who's beyond us? Because God must be greater than what we understand, or it's one of us running the world. And that's a scary thought. I love that. That's the perfect meta-reflective experiential learning. Now, they all play off one another. There's no doubt about that. That meta and experiential and reflective, they all kind of circle around each other. That's a Christian discipleship process. Jesus invited his disciples into a relationship whereby they learned what he knew. They created competence by being with him, and who he was. They understood his character so that they could later emulate it. That's really the core of discipleship, isn't it? To the point that we can learn and be more like God, both in our competence and character. But there's a key word there, isn't it? It's called relationship. I can know everything about someone. I can give you all their stats and tell you everywhere they've ever lived and all the stories of their life. But it's not until I'm in full relationship with them that I get the full experience of the formational learning that it is because I know them, right? It starts with a relationship with a triune God. That's a God, 3 in 1, right? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's all 3 in 1. Creator God, redeeming God, sustaining God. It's the 3 in 1 understanding. It's that relationship with that God that then moves me into a relationship where the Holy Spirit is prompting me to continue to learn more. It is this longing to know God in such a way that it's no longer textbook. It's no longer a sermon. It's no longer a worship song. It is much deeper and a whole lot more meaningful. It's in that relationship that we then move to coaches and others who provide us kind of just a series of guide, people who've been down the road a little bit farther, and they guide us and they educated us and they challenge us and they encourage us so that we can launch effectively. That we won't have a failure to launch, but a failure to understand is not acceptable. And so teachers and guides and coaches educate, challenge, and encourage until the point in which we're ready to launch. And in fact, that's what we're all as mature Christians supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be raising up others and allowing ourselves to rub off on others, to be so close to others that we can teach them and guide them and coach them, so that no matter their personality type, no matter who they are, they can feel safe in what it means to follow Christ, but also then at times being able to weigh the risk and take appropriate risk for the gospel. I think a true disciple has a great balance of this strength that comes from knowing God and a safety net of knowing Him both in this meta learning and this reflective and in this experiential way, so that there is this safety in knowing I'm on solid ground here, but then also that there has to be sometimes a risk. And that in that risk, through that experiential risk, and sometimes in the risk of maturity, I will not stop learning about God, because He is always going to be bigger than what I think He could be. And in so doing, I become more of a disciple of His. Now, that's our discipleship moment for today. I just want to thank you once again for joining me on these. This is just a passion of mine right now to help develop disciples. I'd hope that if you enjoyed this today, you might try to search us out online and donate a few shekels to the cause, or check out some of our other Forge Chicago videos or opportunities to learn. Thank you so much. Have a great day.